Christina Barton. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm host Christina Barr, and today we'll be talking about how Trump is saying we shouldn't have any more debates, and he wants RNC, I guess, to just kind of knock it off. But that's not how it works, though. He is very tight with Ronna McDaniel, who's the RNC chair, which is funny because so many people who like Trump don't like Ronna and didn't want her to be the chair again, but Trump and her have some kind of, I don't know, blood oath or something. He actually made sure that she won that re-election. So go figure. But yeah, he's complaining about it. There was some stuff that DeSantis said about Trump and spending a lot of money, which obviously spent a lot of money in his administration, and said that adds on to inflation. And so the Biden, people are cutting ads from it, and now there's Trump people mad that DeSantis said something, and now Biden is using it as cannon fodder. And um, there's a lot to be said about that, so we'll talk about it. Also, there's a viral clip from a Democrat yesterday saying that she wished that her parents, or she prays to God that her parents would be as loving as Joe Biden is to his son, which is pretty remarkable. I don't know if someone would say that because they want someone will help them get as much money as Joe Biden got them. But I definitely wouldn't trade my parents for Joe Biden. Not in a million years. So you can stump for your guy, but don't be crazy. don't be crazy. Also, I want to talk about this viral clip of this trans identified male, a trans woman, someone I guess who considers himself to be a woman or girl but is not, who attacked these other females in school. They're like middle schoolers, and so the clips have gone viral. So apparently they're looking into um it, and it's now being handled by law enforcement. And I don't know if this person will end up in juvie or something, and if they go to juvie, will they be stationed with other boys? But yeah, just brutal. How he just kind of attacked the girls and is obviously stronger than the girls because he's a boy. And maybe there's less of a difference when you're in elementary school. I fought with some boys when I was in elementary, but when you get older, it definitely that gap begins to, it closes real quick and then it widens the other way. For sure. So we'll be talking about those things today. Before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on the website, different articles, different videos, etc. I did drop an article the other day about Carrie Lake, which we did cover that on the show, but she said some things about DeSantis that were interesting, because she definitely was saying a different tune went midterm. He was a great governor, etc. But she's firmly on Team Trump, and she once said the only thing better than being called the DeSantis of the West was being called Trump in a dress. And so she's taking the Trump in the dress route and is parroting a lot of the same talking points. So she got roasted the other day for dishonesty. And I don't mind people talking about policy stuff, for sure, in primaries. That's what you have to do, because you have to weed yourself out from the rest of the pack. That's absolutely fine. I don't like some dishonest attacks, and we went through the debate yesterday and talked about some people who threw some bombs, and Tim Scott and the curtain thing, and Nikki Haley and the fracking allegation against Ron DeSantis. So yeah, just try to keep it clean. Now, some things people say they're attacks, and they're those are still policy-ish related, though they're misleading. There's some things that are just blatant lies that some people will just throw at folks to try to get a victory, and I don't appreciate it. So anyway, go check out that article on blacktnews.com. Check out different merch that we have available at the store. I'll just show like a thing or two and move on. So I got the black tea mug. We also got other shirts and so on. So check out what we got at the store. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blackteams.com/donate. Cost to stream, cost to run my website, etc. There are some needs that you might hear buzzing. I don't know what's wrong with my fan on my computer. It happened like maybe 2 days ago, and right now it just keeps buzzing repeatedly. So don't know what's up with that. The last computer I replaced that I had that I really liked, I had a fan issue, was just really loud for whatever reason. So I opted to just go get a new one and actually gave that to my younger sister. And it was really slow too, but she got, put in more RAM and stuff and it was faster. But anyway, I don't know if you guys can hear that because the mic is very good. Thank you to my siblings who helped me get that for my birthday. But so I don't know. You can let me know if it's an issue or not. But I do have an Amazon list in the link. I have 2 things on there. I didn't have a lot of time. I'm going to look at it like another camera and stuff too, but I do have a webcam. It's just basically kind of the upgrade of the one that I had before, and a hard drive and stuff. So people have asked, or said that they'd like to support in that way. So thank you very much. If you want to follow through with that, the option is available. So thank you for even asking. But again, if you just want to donate, you guys can go to the website and do that. There's a link in the description for that as well. And if you're watching on Facebook, you guys can send stars. If you're watching on YouTube, you guys can do super chats. So there's a funny thing that I could show. It was a little funny to me. Yesterday when I was trashing the Donald thing, that Chris Christie was talking about Trump not going to the debates, and he's like, "You're ducking, and if you keep ducking, we're not going to call you Donald Trump. We're going to call you." And I guess the Donald Duck joke made sense, but it doesn't. I don't know. It didn't roll off the tongue. I guess because it doesn't rhyme. So I was thinking he was going to call him Chump, but Duck makes sense in the context. But it didn't land very well. But this image is circulating around Twitter today, which it's not new, and I have no idea who made it. Which Chris Christie, someone was like, I don't know who made this, and Chris Christie did retweet it and said, "I'll take credit for it," which he didn't make this, but I don't know. Once you kind of see it, I think it's kind of hard to unsee it a bit. So here's the Donald and and Donald Duck and then the Donald. So I can see it. Kind of not unsee it. So a little funny, but yeah, I don't know who made that, but it's not new. But Chris Christie's like, I'm gonna take credit for it. I still think I stand by what I said. I didn't like his Donald joke. I thought it was flat. I thought basically most of the insults the other night weren't great. I thought there were other ones from the other debate that were spicy. It was just, I don't know, felt a bit passionless and flat, and it was boring and frustrating. Certainly. So I don't know. Wasn't a fan of the debate the other night, but we already went through all that. So let's move on. Trump is also not a fan of the debates, and he thinks we should be done with them. He thinks that we should just be over them or whatever. And I don't understand. Like, I understand that he for sure wants everybody to just coalesce around him, fundraise for him, focus the attacks on Biden. That makes sense, but he could just easily just stop the all caps writing on True Social and ignore everyone because he is so far up in the polls. Now, the more that he complains about other people and punches down, it gives people an impression like, do you have some kind of internal polling that you're worried about? Because you could, if you're so far ahead of everybody that you won't even debate them and they're never going to catch up to you. And guys, that might be the case. That might be the case that it's technically, it's not, you could say practically over, Obviously no votes have been cast. You don't decide a primary election, by especially in this case for like the national kind of polling. You do that state by state by state, which he's still ahead state by state, but the gaps are more narrow. DeSantis does have a shot in Iowa, and then as you go from that momentum, they're hoping it carries, etc. It's not impossible that someone else wins, but he's far ahead, just to be from the metrics that we can see. I don't have internal polling data. I didn't pay anyone to do that. But if he is so far ahead in the general election, he could just kind of ignore everyone because he's still the leader of the Republican Party, from people's minds. And no point in like chopping down everybody else around you when they still have to run their states. They still have to run for Senate. They still have political futures and stuff. You could just ignore them like they're, I don't know, gnats or something that'll get buzzed by zappers or something around you that you don't even have to swat at them. You can just leave them be and then focus on just hitting Biden. That's what you could do. But Trump has been going at DeSantis since the midterms, way before that Trump announced, I think, and before DeSantis announced. He was going at DeSantis and saying stuff which I didn't appreciate because he was running for re-election, and you have someone downing him. So he could just ignore them and just focus on Biden if that's what he, is kind of saying, that he's already in the general election pretty much. But that's not the case he's making. So let me show you this Truth Social post that he made. And he said, I'm up 56 points. So the debates would seem to be a complete waste of time. I'm also up 10 on Crooked Joe. What is there are other polls that there was one outlier that had him way ahead. The other sort of polling on it didn't make sense. We went through that, I think, on Monday. But that was an outlier poll. There's other polls that have them running neck and neck, or Joe ahead or down by one, etc. What is the RNC doing? They should be fighting against election interference and the Pennsylvania voter registration scam. The debate should be ended. Bad for the Republican Party. I was in Michigan last night, and the auto workers and others watched debate. Equal report card. Doug Burgum was a very good job. Solid and smart. Sloppy Chris Christie was a disaster. A Trump deranged lunatic. Nikki Birdbrain Haley was exposed for her caustic disloyalty and lies about the Republican Party and me. Doesn't have what it takes. Never did. Lion Mike Pence has lost a lot of his energy. Very flat. He's right about it was flat for him. That's needs me badly, actually. Quite sad to watch, but he'll get better. Too much J6. Tim Scott stepped it up. Wonderful guy. Looking forward to getting his endorsement. Vivek said, I was a great president. Thank you. Good job. Ron DeSanctimonious had a bad night. He can feel the end is near, dropping like a rock. So, some of this is true. Some of this is obviously not true. So, Burgum had a lot of people did feel that he had substantive answers, and he did kind of have a good night. I thought he was really annoying though, because he talked over a lot and wanted to interject when it wasn't his turn. He was too aggressive. It seemed a little pathetic to me, and he shouldn't be there. He's polling very low. Okay. So, but his answers were okay. Nikki Haley calling her bird brain, which he's made other posts now calling her bird brain. I don't think it's good that Trump rags on basically so many people that he hired and had in his cabinet stuff. And there's been compilation videos that people have done, him talking about, Kaylee McEnany, called her milk toast. He went after Kelly, which I don't like, not, he did go after Kelly. He went after Millie, which I don't like Millie. So whatever, but, just a lot of people, him going after like McEnany she was a great press secretary for him. So, I mean, I guess milquetoast isn't the worst thing you could be called, but why? So now he's calling her bird brain. Um, Tim Scott, elevating someone who is generally nice to him, but doesn't see as a threat, and isn't really going after him. Vivek did say he was the best president of his lifetime and stuff, and complimented Trump, and won't really say much anything bad about him. He's written, that he's a someone who perpetuates victim culture and stuff. And when he asked about it by Candace Owens and stuff, and other people on her show, that he said it was a satirical chapter, and it's not true. I did a video on that. You guys can go check that out. But he doesn't want to upset and rock that boat. But it doesn't seem like he's really much running for president. He can stay on as long as he wants because he's self-funding. But when it gets to DeSantis, well, I'll talk about Christie, slappy Chris Christie. It wasn't a great night for him, and he didn't have the bombs. He had good moments, I mentioned yesterday, but he didn't have good sort of bombs to throw like he did before. So he should just kind of go. But apparently he doesn't plan to. He was asked about that, and I don't get that. Again, he's just, if he doesn't want Trump to be the nominee, he's not helping. But Ron DeSantis had a good night. So that's what Trump's saying here is cap. Ron DeSantis had a good night. A lot of people feel that he did win. Different what do you call it when you have the audience and they look at the debate and they say who won or whatever. The test group folks, I can't think of what you call it. But most people thought that Ron won, and he did really good, way better than the other one in my opinion. At least as far as his awkwardness and stuff, he did much better to me, and he had good answers. And was there anything wow in the debate? No, not really. And I don't know if it'll move the needle and stuff, but Trump making these kind of posts, they're not helpful. I guess to a lot of people won't hurt him. But it does beg the question, or gets people's, juices flowing. Like, why so annoyed? Why so triggered by all this if he's just so far ahead? Just focus on Biden. And so there's other posts that people made, like, we just need to focus on Biden and not waste time. And there's people who are Trump allies that are like, we need to just come together and fundraise for Trump, which I've said this many times. Just because DeSantis or the people drop out doesn't mean that those donors are going to give money to Trump because they don't want to pay his legal bills and all other kind of stuff. And there's people who's supporting DeSantis because they want another option and they don't want it to be Trump. That doesn't mean that they won't vote for Trump. By the way, I've seen plenty of people who say they're done with Trump. They voted for him twice and they're not going to do it again. But they want that other option, and they don't appreciate people trying to shut down any options before any primaries have happened. And someone in my audience the other day said that they don't mind paying for Trump's legal bills and giving to his legal bills because he's fighting for everybody. It depends on which case you're talking about, because I ain't got nothing to do with him hiding his documents from his lawyers and ignoring a subpoena. So I do think they are obviously going after Trump, especially the fraud case, by the way, is looks really bad. Not that he did something so wrong, but there's the law in New York. I don't quite know how to explain it, but they have a law in New York that you don't really have to show harm. And even if Trump profited, and like the people that profited off of whatever deals they made regarding his properties or whatever he valued them, the government can still say, like, oh no, you did a bad thing, so we can basically come at you for it. And I'm like, well, that's messed up. That's a reason not to do business in New York. Oh my gosh. So basically Trump and his children are in danger of losing a lot of what they have. And I think, well, obviously Letitia James and other people want to go after him because they don't like him, and people never forgave him for winning, and for the stances that he took for draining the swamp or trying to drain the swamp, and etc. Um, so absolutely, people are targeting him and have been targeting him from the beginning of his presidency, and but actually technically before he won. That is true. Unfortunately, he's also Sideshow Bob stepping on a rake in some cases. And repeatedly, like that scene. Well, if you know the reference, like Sideshow Bob, I think there's all these rakes and stuff, and he just kept walking, and he just keep walking into a rake. So um he does create problems for himself that make it easier for people to go after him. The case in New York is a rough, man, though. And there's I mean, I guess the only one that I'm just like, he's gonna have a really tough legal time with, and maybe should have a legal time with, is a Florida one. All the other ones, I guess they'll have a tough time with, but not because I think that they're valid, I guess. Anyway, people are very mad at DeSantis because he pointed out that Trump spent a lot of money. And then Biden is cutting ads with it. So let me show you, like, Jack Posobiec was like, right on cue, the next phase of the scumbag op is executed. Here's how it will play out. Next will be KJP uses it for a White House press briefing, then TV ads. They'll all use the DeSantis clip final phase as when Joe Biden says it on the debate stage. That's if Joe Biden bothers debating Trump at all. You know, he might feel like it's beneath the dignity of his office to do that. And Trump isn't debating. So, and what if Joe Biden is so far ahead in the polls or whatever, which his unfavorables are high. Trump's as unfavorables are high. Who knows how the polling will be in the future? But he might say like, "Hey, Trump didn't debate because he was so far ahead. I'm ahead of him, so why should we debate or whatever?" You know, who knows? But here's what Joe Biden himself is now sharing based off this clip with Ron DeSantis.
And you know who else is missing in action? Donald Trump is missing in action. He should be on this stage tonight. He owes it to you to defend his record where they added $7.8 trillion to the debt. That set the stage for the inflation that we have now.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
And you know who else is missing in action?
So that's the thing that they cut. Not surprised at all. That they and just keep in mind with these campaigns, these people, like, whatever you do, the opposition is going to look at ads to cut. As a matter of fact, when I worked at the Michigan Republican Party, we did not only watch Republican debates, we watched the Democrat debates because I wanted to know what I was going to use, what I was going to clip, what we're going to tweet about. So just keep in mind, whatever you say, it will come back in some kind of ad. Democrats said a bunch of stuff that, I mean, when Joe Biden was asked the question like, would you be willing to basically destroy this economy for your Green New Deal policies or whatever, to stop oil and fracking and all that stuff? And Joe Biden was like, the answer is yes. Well, like hundreds of thousands of jobs, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of jobs, would you risk it? He's like, yes. And I'm like, okay, I'm clipping that. I guess it didn't end up meaning much because those dummies in Pennsylvania still voted for him. But they watch. When I worked at the Michigan Republican Party, I did not have Fox on my TV. Because we're like, we know what the people of Fox are going to say. We watch CNN. And so many times, just from watching CNN, they would say something crazy. Someone would say something crazy on CNN, and there'd be, I don't know, some organization or whatever that we would be like, okay, we need this aired such and such. We need this clip. And they'd send the clip, and then I'd make a video. So you got to keep that stuff in mind. And that's why it's really important to also, if you're going to bring up something, a policy thing that your enemy did, that's valid. People complaining about people mentioning that Trump spent a lot of money. Trump did spend a lot of money. We know why a lot of money was spent. I mean, they were still spending a lot of money before, don't get me, before COVID and stuff. They were spending a lot of money still. But we know why they spent a lot of money. And there can be context for the spending of the money, but it happened. By the way, Trump not spending money, I never had the idea that he wouldn't spend a lot of money, by the way. Tea Party, small, limited government conservatism, don't spend a lot of money, cut the budget, all that stuff. I'm for that. I believe in that. And I think a lot of people do. However, I don't know how much the populist kind of people feel about that, but when it was Trump, clear that he was going to be the president, I did not expect him to not spend money. The man pees in golden toilets. So that just was not my expectation. I'm not saying that that shouldn't have been a priority, but I'm just like, this man is going to spend money. And he continued to pitch spending a lot of money. The platinum plan that he was pitching to get black people to vote for him or whatever, and which is probably the closest reparations we may get, but people didn't go for it, and the black vote didn't really expand with all those promises that he tried to make. That was no small bill. So people mentioning that he spent a lot of money, intended to spend a lot of money, already had spent a lot of money, it's just the truth. It's just the truth. So what Trump is going to have to do, and other people are going to have to add context. They're already using the pandemic and keeping out the context of the pandemic. They make charts with negative job growth, and they're like, Trump is the only one to leave office with all these negative jobs. And I get so upset about it, because I'm like, did you guys crash the economy just to make a graph like this one day? Because that's what it feels like. Like, my state senator was like sharing those talking points, Debbie Stabenow, and I'm like, did you guys just ruin everything just to say that Trump sucks? Did you destroy all these small businesses and lock us up and destroy, get all these people laid off just so you could say that Trump had all this negative job growth and Biden had this huge job growth? Because basically you're flicking on a light switch because people could go back to work suddenly. Like, was that your end goal, just the narrative, rather than the welfare of the actual American people? Because that's what it seems like. That's what it actually seems like. So the Democrats are going to play dirty with that anyway. But he did spend money. It's just a fact. So but I don't appreciate people getting all ticked off about Ron mentioning that on the debate stage and saying, hey, Trump should be here to defend his record, because he could be there to defend his record and say, we had to do this, we had to, I don't know, do this up. We were doing the tariffs, which put a ding on the farmers, so we had to spend money to help the farmers, because we need to send a message to China, but we also need to help our farmers. We needed to save the airplane industry, we needed to save this and that. And he could be on stage defending his record, but he's not. So that's one of the things that happens. Now, Mike Pence was there trying a little bit, but he wasn't doing a great job. So there's that. But Trump has also accused Ron DeSantis of being a groomer pedophile. He's also retweeted Laura Loomer, who said he was on the spectrum. He's also had bingo cards for the last debate saying that, every time DeSantis defends slavery, so they're perpetuating that hoax / lie that, that Kamala and the media and stuff tried to push. So also said that Cuomo did a better job with COVID, that basically a Democrat could be in charge of Florida and it would be the same or better if DeSantis wasn't the governor. So it seems a little silly to get mad that DeSantis said something on the debate stage and Trump is saying all these like malicious sort of attacks. So if you're fine with that, with how Trump plays in the sandbox, don't complain about how DeSantis is in the sandbox fighting. Like, don't complain. Like, seriously. Um, don't bother. Do not even bother, guys. Just let them fight, I guess, if that's what it's going to be. But I think it is too bad. Um, when my sister ran for chair of the Michigan Republican Party, she was running against Laura Cox, who just lost her race for the state senate. Um, she served 2 terms in the state house, and she could have served another term, but she decided to do the senate, and so we lost that house seat that she abandoned, and or decided not to run for again, and then we lost that seat that she ran for in the senate, and she wanted to be chair. And actually, she's the wife of the former attorney general of Michigan, so she's pretty hooked up. Um, and she did a big deal approving a lot of money to the former Republican chair Bobby Shostak. He was chair twice of the Michigan Republican Party, and he's showed if you drive around Michigan, Shostak name everywhere for like real estate. And so they got him a lot of money to pay for something that he wanted when she was like in the house. So he was backing her to be the chair, and they had all these endorsements just lined up, and then they had got Trump didn't endorse her, but his campaign manager Brad Barskell endorsed her and stuff. So it was like David v. Goliath sort of situation. And so I could have hit her on, and when I say I was the one doing like the media and stuff for my sister and videos and stuff. I could have easily made like a 50 reasons not to vote for Cox. I could have talked about how some votes where she raised taxes and other sorts of things. And but some of the spotlight that I would have drawn on her would have illuminated some other Republicans who didn't vote in the best way. And maybe they deserve that sort of reaming, but as someone who wanted to be the chair and over the Republicans, we felt like we also had a responsibility to not expose our party like that in the future, because whoever wins still has to do what's best for the party. So we try to act in according to that future mindset of what happens when the dust settles. So we are very intentional of how we attacked and when we attacked, etc. They did some really dirty things. I've talked about it before. I'm not gonna go too deep into it. But the race ended up being really close, and we actually lost because the RNC chair was whipping votes on the floor. Usually people stay out of primaries like that. But there were all sorts of deals going on. And we were getting in the way of that, so they had to squash us, I suppose, but they didn't really squash us. So it was very close. But it was a very interesting time. But I told that story, or a bit of that story, to say I think it would be helpful if people did think about the long term and what's going to happen when the dust settles. Like, at the end of the day, primary is over. Maybe DeSantis will be the nominee. Probably Trump will be the nominee. But DeSantis is still going to be the governor of, for at least another 2 years. Don't malign him, and let's be careful about, the Nikki Haley, Tim Scott back and forth with the curtains was so silly. And, just be careful about how you come at your opponents, because at the end of the day, you're supposed to be playing for the same team. And once you are like the nominee, and once you are the president and stuff, you are like the top number one sort of Republican, and your leadership really matters. So I know politics can be a very dirty game, but I think how you get to the top of the mountain should really matter, because then you're the representative of something bigger than yourself. One of the reasons why I was so TO'd at ticked off, by the way, at Mitt Romney when he came out against Trump, during the 2016 election, and he had all these Trump steaks and Trump wine, and he did a big speech about he's actually not that good in business and all this other kind of stuff. What bothered me about it so much was, I'm like, you were the nominee. You were the nominee. A lot of people didn't even like you, and you were the nominee. And you expected everyone to stand by you. You expected everyone to stand by you once you were the nominee. So I'm at that point, I'm like, there's a good shot that Trump would be the nominee at that point. And I know his goal was to stop him, but I'm like, you're not going to convince all these people who see Trump's name on these towers and all these buildings everywhere. He has a hit TV show, and I guess he did get fired, but you're not going to convince all these people that because like 6 businesses failed, or 6, 7, 8 subsidiaries failed, that the other 500 that he has is unsuccessful. I'm like, you're not going to convince people of that. So it just seemed like a really lame attack. But I'm like, are you shooting your own like party in the leg right now? And he's his own person. He can make his own plans, his own ideas. But at the same time, I'm just like, you were our nominee. You were the RNC, the people went to the RNC and convention, and they voted you in, and you were the person on the ballot. He wasn't my favorite person. I guess suppose liked him more than I did now, but I wasn't crazy about going out there supporting Mitt Romney, but I did it because he was a nominee. So when you're on a team sport, you got to kind of act like it. Some of you watching may be an independent, and you vote for, you don't like anybody. Maybe you just consider yourself conservative, and you just vote Republican because they share your values most of the time. That's cool. I so respect that. But if you're on a team, you're on a team. You could disagree with your teammates. There's a lot of things that people should handle internally. It kills me when there's like state party infighting and stuff, and a lot of stuff you don't handle internally, and you want to do it, like have it out on social media, as opposed to like, I don't know, calling somebody and going at meetings or whatever. Like there's things that you could, it's like media looks at your post, they look at what you write, they will create stories about it, so you just gotta think about the party as a whole sometimes. And I don't feel like a lot of people will do that because so many people are out for their own gains and their own interests. Maybe I'm fighting for an America and a party that doesn't exist anymore. Who knows? But I just had to say my little spiel. Anyway, moving on. I got to show you this video that's gone pretty viral of this Democrat who was talking about Joe Biden, and she decided to defend him. And she thinks, I guess the only thing he's guilty of is loving his child unconditionally. And I'm perplexed by this. So someone, a mutual of mine, he had commented under this thread and had said he didn't even have, he's like, I can hear the video and I haven't even unmuted it yet. And by her body language, I'm like, that's funny because I totally understand that. But here's her spiel.
I can't seem to find the crime, and honestly, no one has testified of what crime they believe the president of the United States has committed. But when we start talking about things that look like evidence, they want to act like they blind. They don't know what this is. These are our national secrets. Looks like in the shitter to me. This looks like more evidence of our national secrets, say on a stage at Mar-a-Lago. When we're talking about somebody that's committed high crimes, it's at least indictments. Let's say 32 counts related to unauthorized retention of national security secrets, 7 counts related to obstructing the investigation, 3 false statements, 1 count of conspiracy to defraud the United States, falsifying business records, conspiracy to defraud the United States, 2 counts related to efforts to obstruct the vote certification proceedings, 1 count of conspiracy to violate civil rights, 23 counts related to forgery or false document statements, 8 counts related to soliciting, and I could go on because he's got 91 counts pending right now. But I will tell you what the president has been guilty of. He has unfortunately been guilty of loving his child unconditionally, and that is the only evidence that they have have brought forward. And honestly, I hope and pray that my parents love me half as much as he loves his child. Until they find some evidence, we need to get back to the people's work, which means keeping this government open so that people don't go hungry in the streets of the United States. And I will yield.
Okay. Sister. Okay. First of all, you don't have to play the whataboutism game with Trump. As she said, he's been indicted. They are going after him. His stuff will be handled in the court. They've already impeached the man twice. And over some, especially the first one was over some garbage, I think, from the standards that they had basically to go after Trump, and the weak sauce they had then is if the Democrats kind of kept that same energy. I made the argument in an article that I wrote on my website that they could basically get Biden for the same stuff. But so you see, you don't have to play the whataboutism game with Trump. As she said, he's been indicted, so you don't have to waste time in Congress pointing the finger at him. As far as Joe Biden, the only crime he's guilty of is loving his son. And she prays to God. She hopes that her parents could love her half as much as Joe Biden loves Hunter Biden. I don't know what kind of parents she got. But I love my parents. I would never say that in a million years. I don't care how much money Joe Biden facilitates for his crackhead son. I would never say something so utterly trash as that just to cover for Joe Biden and to stick up for him. You can go ahead and stand for your man. You can stomp for your guy. You can try to stick up for him. You can try to debunk the Republicans, but do not go ahead and make yourself into a fool over this man who, if you had done the same things that his son had done, being a crackhead, trying to breaking the law, getting a gun and, breaking federal law. And then his girlfriend, who was his brother's widow, threw it away near a school. If that happened, if you did that, he would arrest you with the rest of the super predators. That's what Joe Biden would want to do. That's what Joe Biden would want to do. But of course, he loves his son, cares for his son, so he treats him differently. Not because that's a good thing, but just because he is utterly corrupt and hypocritical and selfish, and he has raised a son who has not had to face a lot of accountability in his life. And many other parents who have children who they love, has structure in their lives. So I don't understand that at all. I don't understand that. And you could be a good parent and your kids still, they live their own life, they make their own mistakes. But Joe Biden, the whole image of him just being a good dad, the mirage of him just being a kind old grandpa who eats the ice cream, even though they would literally hang stockings at Christmas time in the White House, ignoring his 7th grandchild. And he basically had to be bullied into acknowledging that his son knocked someone else up. Just stop. Just stop all the way. Hunter Biden has an issue with his dad taking like 50% of his money. That's what he tweeted. I'm sorry, not tweeted, but texted to his daughter. But his dad hooks him up for sure. And his dad, he on the debate stage, he said his family never got any money from China. That's not true. He said he didn't know anything about his son's business dealings. Obviously a lie. Something that when we really got punished in my house, do you know what we got punished for? For not being honest. Because my dad made it a point that I have to know that I can be able to trust you, that when you say something, it's the truth. Especially if we're in a life or death situation, I come to you, I need to know that you are being honest. So if you did something that was deceptive, that was like the highest sort of form of punishment that you were going to get, because he needed to know that your word was good. And I can trust that my dad's word was good. So again, not in a million years would I say I wish that my parents loved me half as much as Joe. I wish Joe had 10% of the sense that my parents had. I think 10%, and this nation would be vastly better. You didn't. Again, you could stand for your man, stop for your guy, go after the Republicans, defend all you want. But really, the only crime is loving his son. I'm sure there's some far violations in there somewhere. Now it's still an impeachment inquiry. They're still looking at stuff. At the very least, you know that Joe Biden has been vastly dishonest about the involvement with his son and the business dealings. So just don't act like they're just everything is just clean as the driven snow, and he's just a guy who loves a son who's, vastly messed up a lot. Covering the tracks with the Hunter Biden laptop, blaming the Russians, like having Blinken talking to some people in the intelligence community and them coming together with this letter saying it has all the earmarks of Russian propaganda or misinformation and stuff, knowing good and well the laptop was true. But which, by the way, Hunter Biden is suing, I think, Rudy Giuliani over hacking or getting in his computer and stuff. I guess they're acknowledging that it's his and real, which that was always true, but he did abandon it at the laptop shop. Biden, of course, knew that was true. The laptop was real. The stuff in it was true. The FBI had it too. So what a wild clip. So anyway, that one's been going around, making the rounds. You don't have to you don't have to go that route. You don't have to go that route, ma'am. Especially not for Joe. He wouldn't do the same for you. Anyway, I want to show you guys this clip of this I think we're all middle schoolers. So there was a boy who identifies as a girl who has been quite violent against females, and there's at least 2 clips going around of his violent attacks. So Redux has been reporting on it. If you're not familiar with Redux, they do a lot of information and reporting on men and women's prisons and locker rooms and spas and other kind of stuff like that. So they're a good source to follow and keeping up a good fight of protecting women's spaces and speaking out against women losing their spaces and so on. But here's one of the clips of the young man attacking these female students.
Try the fuck again.
So that's one of them. That's the second one that was going around. Now, let me show you guys this other one. This is the one that went pretty viral yesterday.
That bitch.
Yeah, not well. So Redux confirmed that a petition has been filed with the Washington County Juvenile Court, and charges are now pending against a transgender student involved in the assault at Hazelbrook Middle School. Um, so it's not that girls don't fight and dudes don't fight in school and stuff, and that stuff gets wild and whatever. But as I said, you know, when you're in elementary and boys versus girls, there's not as big of gaps as there are when you get older, and men obviously have, more physical advantages and stuff. And him slinging around these girls and by their hair and throwing them to the ground and beating them in the head and stuff, that wouldn't be appropriate for any children to do in school like that. And I've seen some fights, not as like some wild ones as I'm sure some other people have seen, like in person in school. There's definitely a lot of that I've seen on video and heard about, for sure. I've been in I can't really say. I mean, I've been in scuffles, but nobody wanted to mess with me. I've always been a big girl. I was very nice but very intimidating, I'm sure. So I didn't get into it much myself, but and I guess I didn't hang around a crowd that would warrant major scuffles anyway. But people, there's a lot of underlining issues with some people who identify as who are trans, who consider themselves to be transgender. And it could be other things besides typical dysphoria, and other sort of mental issues that they decide are dysphoria, and they'll point to dysphoria and say, oh, this makes sense, and they'll transition. In the article that the Free Press did, that Barry Weiss and her folks did, where they had a someone who worked at like a transgender clinic and stuff come out and talk about um how they're basically building the airplane as it's flying, and they're just really accustomed to saying yes to people who say that they're trans, and they just affirm and they don't really question. And she noticed that there were people who were mentally disturbed and violent, and other sort of issues going on, and they would just still approve them getting transgender surgeries or hormones or whatever, and go along with it. So I'm I mean, I don't know what all the background is with this person doing this stuff, but I'm just bringing all this stuff up to say we are not giving good care to our kids by just going along with this craze. There's a lot of people with deep emotional issues. Not everyone actually has gender dysphoria. Most kids, if you leave them be, they will grow out of it, but there is a social contagion element to this stuff. And then people get so caught up in their kind of virtue signaling when something happens, like in Loudoun County. They want to ignore that there is a problem just to protect those particular individuals. So it's crazy to me that, like I said, Redux, they do a lot of stories about men who are going into women's prisons, and some of these men who are, well, many of them are violent, many of them who have committed some kind of sexual crime and other things like that, and they'll go into women's prisons. Gavin Newsom said the other day that the trans issue is just blown out of proportion and only affects like 1% of the population, which is funny because it's like, well, why do you guys want to give such privilege and prestige to these people? If you can't just downplay it after you guys know it's a big deal to you. Joe Biden makes it an extraordinarily big deal. They have all these trans visibility days, all this stuff, comes out with a special chart about how we're just supposed to affirm, and like you can't just say that it's not affecting everybody else when you expect the whole society to comply and it's only 1% issue. Just bro, just stop. But I'm reminded of a man who he commuted well he was on death row for murdering his like infant children, and he was like carrying around their remains and stuff, and it was at least two kids, um and so he was supposed to be executed, and he didn't want that because he only thinks that you should execute babies apparently, and he's going to a women's prison. So because they'll have easier times in there or whatever, it's less dangerous. Prison is a dangerous place for most people because it's prison. You shouldn't just because you want to identify as a woman doesn't mean that you should be housed with females. Um, on the flip side, in Florida, they executed a man, and the ACLU was ticked off because they're like, she never got to truly transition the way that she wanted to. Well, he was a monster. So end of story. So people have all kinds of wacky priorities today for sure. But I'm glad they're looking into this stuff. But these people are nutty for sure. For sure. Last thing I would like to mention, I guess before I let you guys go, is that Dianne Feinstein passed away. Already made a post about this on Facebook. You guys have probably heard about it. And condolences to her family. There's already political games, like all conversations about how she's going to be replaced, and she's on the judiciary, and this puts the Democrats in an awkward position, and they don't think Republicans will seat somebody else, and all those sorts of games and stuff. And I guess it's just kind of the nature of the business, the reality that everybody jumps to those sort of conversations. I guess it's just kind of how it is. I don't like when someone dies and it's in there in politics, and you see so many people just jump to the things like they're celebrating that they're dead or burning in hell and other stuff, and I don't like that. You could just not say anything or keep that in your head, and death sucks, especially whether you dislike someone a lot, unless someone is like a real monster or something. Just kind of let the family grieve a bit, I guess. But I will say she was 90 years old, and didn't look well, and was voting on stuff like yesterday. And people could die suddenly and they do their job, and they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened. But we all have eyes. We have all been observing and seeing and witnessing, and we have been concerned and have been like, just let her go home, like just appoint someone else, and let it be. She served a very long time. She's the longest serving senator of California, I believe. Just let her enjoy the end of her days. You don't have to will her into the Senate to vote yes and no when you got to tell her what to do. It's weird. So there's a lot of conversations today about term limits. I think there's pros and cons to term limits. Like in certain state legislatures, when you have like term limits, and if they're too short, people will argue like by the time they kind of figure out exactly what they're doing, it's time for them to go. And it sets up a system of like the swamp is the people who work as the staffers or work within the legislature, and not the actual people who vote and make decisions and stuff. And they'll, somehow outlive and outwork and be there longer than the people who, are elected by the people. So there's drawbacks on that system for sure. There's also the fact that the people can also just vote to not have those people in. So there is the power to not continuously elect these people over and over again. But I don't know if term limits is really the thing that we should be discussing so much more than maybe there should be maximums on ages. And I was talking to this about my sister. She's like, well, people say that's ageism. And I'm like, but there's already floor numbers on what you have to be when you want to run for something. Like you have to be 35 to be president, you have to be 25 to run for Congress. Is it 30 for maybe Senate? I don't maybe that's right. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but so there are limits that you have to reach to even run. So if there's numbers there, maybe you have to max out at a certain age. Like the max you can run is maybe age 80, and even at 8, even if we said it was 80 and you get elected like you're 79 or something, you still have, a pretty long term where something can, you can start to kind of face a decline. But I guess those things can be hashed out. I don't know how many people who are very elderly would go for that in the House and in the Senate to pass something like that. But yeah, I think that serious conversations we need to have. But the more we talk about like McConnell and Feinstein and their ages, I think people kind of have to look at our front runners for president. That's a serious question people have to consider as well. And there's many people who feel like Biden is confused and too old, and people, not just people on the right, people on the left as well. Many Democrats want some kind of other option other than Biden. They just feel comfortable running Biden as long as Trump is the nominee. And Biden is older than Trump. But you start getting older, stuff starts declining real fast. Now there's people who are, my grandmother died at 102, and she was in her right mind and everything until, her last day. Obviously couldn't quite get around and other kind of stuff like that. And, moved around very slow and stuff. And, compared to her youth, or just, or not all the way youth, but years ago or whatever. Right. So there's still some kind of decline. I'm not saying she could have ran and been in the Senate or something like that at that age. But I'm just saying, just because you are elderly doesn't mean that you're losing your mind or something like that. But people get older. They're not the same. It's just the truth. But again, my condolences to her family. There was one clip people are sharing, this clip when she like told off some climate people and which I thought was kind of great, just kind of crushing their hopes and dreams. So I just kind of want to share this as my last thing. AG Hamilton 29, I follow him. He said, "Rip to Senator Feinstein, may her memory be a blessing. My favorite Feinstein moment was her telling off a bunch of kids being used by climate activists to try to guilt senators into bad policy." So this was kind of a great moment. So I'm going to go ahead and share this and then close things out.
Some scientists have said that we have 12 years to turn this around.
Well, it's not going to get turned around in 10 years. What we can do,
Senator, if this doesn't get turned around in 10 years, you're looking at the faces of the people who are going to be living with these consequences.
The government is supposed to be for the people and by the people and all.
You know what's interesting about this group is I've been doing this for 30 years. I know what I'm doing. You come in here and you say it has to be my way or the highway. I don't respond to that. I've gotten elected. I just ran. I was elected by almost 1 million vote plurality. And I know what I'm doing. So, maybe people should listen a little bit.
Some scientists have said that.
But your dreams. Take that, little kids. But yeah, again, condolences to her family. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, different articles, different videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. Costs to stream, costs for my website, all that stuff. So you guys can support in that way. I very much do appreciate you. There's a link in the description if you would like to support in that way. I did also post like an Amazon link. So many people asked for it. So thank you for asking and being interested. I appreciate you. Also, check out different merchandise that we have available at the store, different shirts and mugs and so on. Shirts like Life Wins and Row Casey Aborted. We got these mugs that are You Are Not That Special. So go trigger someone in your life. Let them go put them in their place with the happy little star. Also, you guys can check out different books that I have. You guys can follow me on Amazon. I have my book, of course, God is Blatantly Against Abortion, which, by the way, I'm gonna have to do a video on Shank. Uyghur is a Uyghur. I don't know, but Shank from Young Turks. He did a video about numbers 11, and if you've read my book or you hear me talk about this issue at all, you know that numbers 11 grinds my gears. And it's an old video, but I was just going through like some abortion related videos the other day, and so it like was in related content, and I saw it. I'm just so annoyed by it, and I'm like, guys, did you even really read it? Did you even try to understand it? Or are you just going through atheist Reddit and like, I found it, I finally found the answer? So I might just have to do a video dunking on that, but I definitely covered numbers 11 in the book. Went through the whole section and explained things quite thoroughly. So and there's a ton of videos on it too, which makes me think that people don't really want to know the truth. They just want to do a good dunking and be like, aha. So anyway, that one of the many reasons why I wrote the book, if anyone's like, why did you do something that focused on theology? Why didn't you just keep theology out of it? Because I'm sick of people like Cenk making up stuff that is not true, that doesn't make any sense. So I debunked a lot of that stuff in this book. I also talk about rights and science and politics and so on. So it's a good, well-rounded book, not just theology focused, but it is, the central sort of thing regarding the topic. So that's available on Amazon. You guys can check that out. If you go to blacktnews.com, it's literally like the menu, the splash page right now. So it's very easy to find if you go to the website, if you want to get that book and learn some more about what's in there. By the way, Cenk is throwing out there that he might run for president because he wants to do well in the primary. And if he gets like 20%, then maybe he can force someone else to get in, like Whitmer or Newsom or something, because he thinks there should be another option other than Joe, which is pretty interesting. They could push Kennedy, so that's interesting because Kennedy is running. But I guess they prefer someone else like Whitmer. Or I think Whitmer is a strong case for them. Honestly, I'm not saying she's good. I just think from their point of view, for people who would vote on their side for her, I think she's very strong for them. Much stronger than Kamala and some other folks, but much stronger than Biden. But I don't know if the old man's going to step aside. I think they might have to push him down another flight of Air Force One stairs, but they're having him take the shorter stairs because they don't want him to fall. So Kamala Harris, with people waiting in the wings, that might not happen because they have a whole strategy about how to stop him from falling downstairs now. So anyway, thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you on Monday. Have a great